In a quiet town, where everyone pretended to be kind, 4 privileged boys recorded the cruelest moment of an innocent deaf girl's life and laughed. But what they didn't know was that the video would reach the last man they ever wanted to anger, a battle-scarred biker father, who once lost a deaf daughter of his own. Tonight, justice rides on 2 wheels. Lily was only 8 years old, tiny deaf black girl whose world was made of gestures, smiles, and silence. She stood outside the restaurant with her backpack hanging off one shoulder, waiting for her mother to pick up their order. She didn't hear laughter approaching her. She didn't hear the footsteps. She didn't hear danger. What she felt was the shift in the Air Force shadows blocking the afternoon sun. Brandon, Tyler, Kevin, Heimerich, boys who had grown up believing the world belonged to them, stood around her like wolves circling a fawn. Brandon lifted his phone instantly, smirking as if he just found a toy. Tyler waved his hands in the air, mocking Lily's sign language with exaggerated, twisted motions, as if her silence existed for his entertainment. Kevin leaned down and clapped loudly near her face, laughing when she didn't react. Jaime whispered, "She's like a broken robot. Look at her. She doesn't even know she looks stupid." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but no sound came out. She tried to sign, tried to tell them to stop, but every movement she made only made the boys laugh harder. Brandon zoomed the camera in on her trembling hands and tear-streaked cheeks. He added filters, emojis, fake crying effects. Tyler pushed her backpack off her shoulder, letting it fall into a puddle. Kevin picked up her notebook and flipped through her sketches, tearing one page out just to crumple it and toss it toward her feet. Lily stood frozen, shaking, not understanding why this was happening, unable to call for help, unable to defend herself. She covered her ears, even though sound wasn't what hurt. Hurt was the noise of their cruelty, the violence of their laughter, the sting of their words. Brandon stepped closer and whispered, "Smile for TikTok," before hitting record again. In those 20 seconds, he captured the most humiliating moment of her young life, then posted it online without hesitation. In less than an hour, the video hit 10,000 views. By evening, it was at 150,000. The comments were full of laughing emojis, cruel jokes, memes made out of Lily's tears. Strangers mocked her hands, her voice, her face. Kids at her school shared it in group chats. Teachers ignored it. Even the restaurant employees pretended nothing happened. Lily had no idea her humiliation was now public. But somewhere, miles away, a man saw a tanned. The world inside him shattered. Jake Morrison, known to most as Tank, sat in his small kitchen polishing the dog tags of his late daughter Emma, who had been deaf, just like Lily. Emma had died 3 years earlier. Taken by a drunk driver while riding her bike home, the grief never left Jake. It sat on his chest like a weight he could never lift. When he absent-mindedly opened TikTok, he didn't expect to see a little girl who looked so painfully similar to Emma that he dropped his phone. Lily's shaking hands. Emma had signed the same way. Lily's trembling lips. Emma had cried like that after being bullied at school. Jake's breathing turned sharp, shallow. He clicked the video again. And again. Each time, the boy's laughter pierced him like a blade. When Brandon said "broken robot," something inside Jake ruptured. Years of grief, rage, and helplessness surged like a tidal wave. Jake stood abruptly, knocking his chair over. His vision blurred. For the first time since Emma's death, he felt the urge to scream, but instead, he ran to the bathroom and vomited violently. He slid down the wall, shaking, gripping his dog tags until they cut into his palm. "Not again," he whispered. "Not another little girl." When he finally pulled himself together, his eyes were red not from tears, but from fury. He grabbed his phone, opened the encrypted group chat titled Iron Brotherhood, a private network of retired veterans and former military bikers spread across several states. His fingers moved with purpose. "Brothers, I need help. Emergency. A deaf little girl is being terrorized by 4 rich boys. Video attached. This cannot go unanswered." Within seconds, replies came in. "On my way where?" "Send location, Tank, we ride tonight," shared the city and timestamp of the video. And then something Jake didn't expect happened. More than a dozen veterans responded. Detroit, Chicago, Tennessee, Pennsylvania. Some men he hadn't spoken to in years suddenly came alive in the group. They all saw the video. They all saw Lily, and every one of them remembered Emma. By midnight, engines were warming. Patches were being strapped on jackets. Bikes were lined up in garages across multiple states. The Iron Brotherhood was mobilizing, because somewhere out there, an 8-year-old girl had been broken, and they were coming to make her whole again. Grace noticed something was wrong the moment Lily stepped through the door. Her daughter's shoulders were hunched, her eyes wide and unfocused, her tiny hands trembling as if she had walked through a storm no one else could see. Grace knelt in front of her, gently touching her cheek, but Lily wouldn't look up. She kept her gaze on the floor, hands moving in broken, shaky signs that Grace could barely understand. Then Lily finally broke, collapsing into her mother's arms with silent sobs, her body shaking violently. Grace held her close, whispering comfort even though her own heart was pounding. She assumed Lily had faced another childish misunderstanding. It's maybe a rude comment, but nothing prepared her for what came minutes later when her phone exploded with notifications. A coworker texted, "Is this Lily?" Another message read, "You need to see this. I'm so sorry." Grace opened the link, and the world fell apart beneath her feet. There was her daughter, her sweet, gentle, deaf little girl standing alone while 4 boys mocked her, pushed her backpack, ridiculed her hands, and filmed her tears. There were thousands of strangers laughing at her baby. Grace covered her mouth, choking back a scream, then watched the video again and again, each viewing slicing through her like a blade. When she saw Lily's fear, when she saw the boys laughing, when she saw the hateful comments, something inside her shattered. She cried until she couldn't breathe. When she finally looked up, Lily stood in the doorway watching her mother break, and that sight crushed Grace even more. She wanted to call the school immediately, wanted justice, wanted answers. But by the next morning, the nightmare twisted into something even uglier. The school didn't blame the boys. They blamed Lily. They said she provoked reactions by signing too close to other students. They said she should avoid making unusual expressions that confuse others. They said the boys were just playing. Parents of the bullies rushed to defend their sons, claiming Lily was sensitive, dramatic, or seeking attention instead of discipline. The boys were treated like celebrities for their viral prank. Students fist-bumped them in the hallways. Teachers downplayed the cruelty. Brandon proudly bragged about the views. Tyler made another video imitating Lily's silent cries, and Kevin posted screenshots of her face covered in tears. Jaime made a compilation of Lily meltdown moments using clips stolen from her class recordings. While Lily hid in her room, clutching her stuffed unicorn, those 4 boys were celebrated like kings. But far away, Jake Morrison was turning pain into fury. After sending the initial alert, he spent the night coordinating with veterans across Detroit, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Chicago, and beyond. Men who once carried rifles now carried helmets and steel resolve. They didn't just want to help, they needed to. Emma's memory demanded it. Jake tracked every update, every new mocking video, every cruel comment the boys posted, and he wasn't alone. Rebecca Raven Foster, a former military investigator known for breaking cartel cases, joined in the moment she saw the footage. She didn't just watch the video, she dissected it. She paused at frames, noting reflections in windows, street signs, background voices. She pulled metadata, traced usernames, researched the boys' families wealthy, protected, entitled, families who had covered up smaller incidents before. Raven uncovered reports buried by school administrators, pushing a kid with autism downstairs, stealing hearing aids from another deaf student, vandalizing a disabled boy's wheelchair. Every time their parents erased consequences with money and connections. This was not their first act of cruelty, just their most public, and they planned worse. Late that night, Raven intercepted a group chat among the boys. Brandon wanted to return to Lily's house, saying he needed a part 2 for the views. Tyler suggested scaring her at night for real fear reactions. Jaime shared Lily's home address publicly, laughing at the idea of a deaf kid trying to scream. Grace had no idea she was being hunted, but Raven did. With a few keystrokes, she hacked into the boys' phones, tracking their location, messages, search history, and even their drafts of future videos. What she saw made her blood run cold. They weren't just planning a visit, they were planning to traumatize Lily further, catch it on camera, and turn her pain into content. Raven immediately forwarded everything to Jake. When he read the messages, his jaw clenched. His hands shook. He imagined Lily behind her door, imagining Emma in her place, and something inside him snapped. Jake opened the Iron Brotherhood group once more, typed 2 words that every veteran understood with chilling clarity. Code red. Phones buzzed across 7 states. Engines roared awake in dark garages. Jackets were zipped, helmets grabbed, weapons checked. Brotherhood wasn't just a word to these men. It was a promise. Tonight, that promise was for Lily. Brandon. Mitchell and his group of privileged boys drove confidently toward Lily's house, their cell phones recording every movement, every laugh, every cruel remark. The darkness of the night offered them a sense of invincibility, the thrill of impending mischief, electrifying their veins. Tyler held the camera steady, narrating for their thousands of online viewers. We're about to see what a broken robot looks like in real life. Kevin snickered from the back seat, scrolling through comments that egged them on, while Jaime laughed and kept checking the map to ensure they were heading directly to Lily's door. Meanwhile, inside the small, modest home, Grace held Lily close on the couch, both trembling. The house felt too quiet until the pounding of heavy footsteps and the shrill ping of notifications on her phone reminded them of the live stream Brandon had started. Hundreds of strangers were watching as her daughter was about to be terrorized again. Grace's hands shook as she tried to think, trying to figure out what she could do. Wishing for a miracle while Lily clutched a small plush toy, her eyes wide and terrified. The boys reached the house, their laughter bouncing off the walls of the quiet street. Brandon began ringing the doorbell, pounding on the door, narrating their adventure to the live audience. Tyler filmed everything, whispering excitedly to the camera about the expression he expected to see on the deaf girl's face. Just as Brandon was about to kick the door, headlights cut across the street, bright and sudden, illuminating every corner like stadium lights. The sound of 12 motorcycles roared in unison, engines vibrating through the asphalt, a physical force that shook the boys to their cores. Jake Morrison led the formation, walking off his bike with the calm precision of a seasoned soldier, every movement deliberate. 11 veterans flanked him on either side, standing in perfect alignment, each one radiating authority, experience, and controlled danger. The street was suddenly silent, except for the hum of the motorcycles idling, their presence a warning that this was no longer a game. Brandon froze, his cell phone still recording, while Tyler's nervous laughter faltered. Their bravado collapsed like a sandcastle under a tidal wave. Jake's voice cut through the night air, low and measured yet heavy with authority. Son of Robert Mitchell, student at Riverside High, 17 years old. Tyler Hoffman, son of Sheriff Marcus Hoffman. Kevin Walsh, Jaime Santos, short families have shielded you for too long. Each word landed like a hammer strike. The boys looked around, panic replacing confidence, their eyes darting to the strangers on the street. Then Rebecca Raven Foster stepped forward, laptop in hand, connecting to a Bluetooth speaker. From it came their own recorded voices, mocking Lily, planning to return to her house, laughing at the very pain they intended to inflict. Boys recoiled as their words filled the night air. The live stream still rolling, broadcasting their humiliation to thousands. Neighbors emerged from their homes, drawn by the commotion, phones in hand, recording the scene. The boys realized they had underestimated the consequences of their actions. At that precise moment, sirens pierced the tension. 3 state police, cars led by Captain Thunder Richardson, pulled into position, engines echoing off the buildings. Officers moved quickly, containing the area, while Raven's detailed reports had already alerted federal authorities. Jake motioned, and the veterans subtly repositioned themselves. A seamless integration of civilian law enforcement and protective force. Brandon and Tyler tried to speak, to laugh it off, but their voices faltered as they understood for the first time that no amount of privilege or money could shield them. Captain Richardson stepped forward, holding warrants and citations. Brandon, Mitchell, Tyler Hoffman, Kevin Walsh, Jaime Santos, you are under arrest for cyberbullying, stalking, trespassing, and threatening a minor. Your parents have been notified? State and federal authorities are aware of your actions and prior records? Anik turned into hysteria. Brandon's hand shook violently as he attempted to turn off the live stream, but the phone slipped, capturing every expression, every tremble, every tear. Tyler fainted, overwhelmed by fear and shock. Kevin vomited from sheer anxiety, while Jaime clung to the others. Realizing that their family's wealth and influence had crumbled overnight, Jake's gaze softened slightly as he turned toward Grace and Lily. He stepped closer to the house, kneeling just outside the door, his presence reassuring. You are safe now. He signed gently to Lily, then looked at Grace, giving her a calm nod. The fear that had gripped them for hours began to dissolve. Jake knew the night's operation wasn't just about justice, it was about protection. It's about showing Lily that cruelty would never go unchecked, that there were people willing to cross states, risk legal boundaries, and challenge power to defend the innocent. Neighbors, once passive spectators, now watched a lesson in accountability unfold. The live stream, intended to further bully and humiliate, had become the vehicle of justice, exposing not only the boys' malice, but also their vulnerability. The combination of veterans, police, and federal oversight created a complete net of protection. And the boys realized that the world they thought belonged to them could vanish in a single night. As the police handcuffed the four boys, Jake and Raven monitored every movement, ensuring no harm could come to the child or her mother. Outside, the veterans relaxed, engines idling, faces grim but satisfied. Grace finally exhaled, pulling Lily into a comforting embrace. For the first time that evening, Lily smiled. The terror that had haunted her every step was gone. Stood back, watching the tiny girl in her mother's arms, a sense of fulfillment washing over him. Emma's memory, the pain he carried for years, had transformed into protection and justice for another child. Tonight, the lesson was clear. Cruelty has consequences, and those who prey on the vulnerable will eventually meet the unyielding force of those who will fight to protect them. 6 months had passed since the night that changed Riverside Falls forever. Yet the repercussions of that evening continued to ripple through the lives of everyone involved. Brandon Mitchell, once arrogant and untouchable, now sat alone in the cafeteria of the community school he had been transferred to after being expelled from Riverside High. His usual entourage was gone, and whispers followed him wherever he went. Students avoided him instinctively, as if some invisible mark had been branded onto him, signaling his misdeeds. The collapse of his father's dealership, Mitchell Motors, sent shockwaves through the family. Business partners withdrew contracts, customers abandoned loyalty, and the reputation that had been built over decades crumbled under the weight of public outrage over Brandon's actions. Corporate clients who once vied for deals with Robert Mitchell refused even a meeting. Emails and letters from universities Stanford, Harvard, Yale arrived in rapid succession, all rejection notices citing reputational risk and concerns about character. Brandon had spent years shielded by privilege, but now he faced the unfiltered consequences of his choices. Tyler Hoffman was in a similar predicament. His father, Marcus Hoffman, had been forced to resign from the police force after federal investigations reopened. Corruption cases that had previously been buried, Tyler's school record was under scrutiny, and months of mandatory counseling left him painfully aware of the fallout from his cruelty. Kevin Walsh and Jaime Santos simply disappeared from Riverside Falls, their families selling homes, businesses, and moving to distant states in an attempt to escape the public humiliation that would forever follow them. Meanwhile, in sharp contrast, Lily's life had transformed completely. Grace had changed her last name to Morrison in honor of Jake, and together, it enrolled Lily in a new school with a special program for gifted children. At age 9, Lily was fluent in 3 sign languages, excelling in her studies and exploring her love for art and technology. she had become a beacon of resilience and inspiration. Every day, Jake took her on rides through the open roads on his adapted motorcycle, the wind whipping around them, a reminder of freedom and the protection he had promised. Each weekend became a ritual of bonding, laughter, and life lessons. The Iron Brotherhood, inspired by their shared mission to defend the vulnerable, had created an education fund in memory of Jake's late daughter Emma, helping children with disabilities across 5 states pursue their dreams. Lily, now aware of the network of veterans who considered her family, often spoke of them as her uncles, cherishing the love and protection that had been extended to her. Stories about her resilience spread online, reaching over 20 million positive views, inspiring countless families and shining a light on the importance of compassion, courage, and standing up for those who cannot defend themselves. Brandon's downfall was a stark contrast. He found himself working in a small snack bar, head down, forced to serve customers with no authority, no influence, and no friends. Each day was a lesson in humility and consequence, a life stripped of the privilege that had once insulated him from reality. He was forced to reckon with the damage he had caused, the trust broken, and the life lessons he had ignored until now. The contrast between Brandon and Lily could not have been more pronounced. While he endured public shame and isolation, she flourished, supported by those who had chosen to fight for justice and protection. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and cast long shadows across the road, Lily turned to Jake during their customary ride. She signed with a confident, joyful expression. "Being different is my superpower." Jake felt a surge of pride recalling his own daughter Emma, whose memory had haunted him with grief and guilt for so many years. Now, through Lily, he had channeled that grief into something meaningful. Protecting her had given purpose to his pain, transforming sorrow into courage, mentorship, and justice. Grace had graduated with a degree in psychology, specializing in childhood trauma, dedicating herself to helping other families navigate challenges that once seemed insurmountable. Lily's success was not only academic, but deeply personal. She had learned resilience, self-worth, and the power of support networks. Jake reflected on the journey, realizing that the fight to protect Lily was never just about punishing the bullies. It was about proving that kindness, vigilance, and love could overcome cruelty and indifference. The veterans of the Iron Brotherhood had shown that true strength lay not in retaliation alone, but in protection, community, and standing up for what was right, even when the odds seemed impossible. Brandon, Tyler, Kevin, and Jaime, once symbols of arrogance and entitlement, had been forced to confront the realities of accountability. They had learned that wealth, connections, and social status could not shield them from the moral consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, Lily thrived in a world where courage, compassion, and family, both chosen and extended, defined her life. Jake watched her graduate from her special program, the pride in his heart overflowing. The network of veterans, the Iron Brotherhood, and the supportive love of Grace had given Lily a life full of opportunity, joy, and strength. Her story became a testament to the power of standing against cruelty, proving that even in a world often dominated by injustice, protection, courage, and kindness could prevail. Jake smiled as Lily laughed beside him, the wind on their faces, and realized that this was the legacy of resilience they had built together. What had started as an act of cruelty had become a story of hope, transformation, and the unshakable truth that protecting the vulnerable always triumphs over those who choose to harm. In Lily, Emma lived on. In her success and joy, the world witnessed the ultimate lesson that compassion and justice could rewrite even the darkest of stories.